Hey guys, I'm making a quick video here to talk a little bit about the new control options I added to Swordai. Um, and this gets to a little bit of a high-level problem of how you design controls that are really responsive for experienced players, that are easy to use for new players, and how you do that in a way where there's kind of a steady progression from the beginner controls to the expert controls rather than sort of falling off a cliff. And so directional combat games like Swordai tend to have a pretty high learning curve to get yourself to block in the right direction. And various games in the genre, some of them, literally have auto blockers, wherein, single player it just auto blocks the correct way for you, and then they disable that in multiplayer. A lot of games have 4 directions instead of 6, and just getting to the point where you can consistently, block quickly in a circle the way you mean to. Um, it's a little bit like learning to ride a bike. It's hard, and then once you can do it, it's kind of automatic, and you never think about it again. So that's kind of the challenge that one of the biggest challenges in making this game that I've been working on. And so one thing is early feedback I got from testers has been around wanting control schemes that match games they've played before. So for people who've played games like Warband, they're used to having something that's constantly monitoring their mouse direction. And then at any time you can click and input that direction. Um, for other players who aren't used to that, that can be a little tricky because it's always tracking when you turn your head. So if I want to swing, up right, but I also want to look down left. Sorry, if I want to swing up left, but I also want to look down right, I kind of have to do a jerky motion like that where I look, switch, and then keep looking. Um, a lot of players coming from, Mordhau will be used to, using keybinds, and so Swordai has a keybind system, so you can, map directions to keybinds, and then there's a modifier key that you can hold that will determine whether it's a block or attack. And then the default controls in Swordai are my favorite controls, which is, let me turn that off, which is you click and then you drag the direction you want to go. And once your drag is big enough, it switches from blocking to attacking. And so the way Swordai was until the most recent patch, it was using that click and then drag mechanism, but you didn't really have visual feedback on what your drag was doing. And you could control your sensitivity, but you didn't get to see it in action. And so I'm going to turn this way down so we can see what I added in the latest patch based on feedback from thinking very hard about watching players who'd never played any directional combat game before struggle, was I added this mode where you can see which way your drag's going and you can adjust it, and it doesn't start your swing until you get a big enough arrow, and then it inputs that direction. So if I want to block down, say I accidentally move up, I can see that I accidentally moved up, and then block down at the end. And usually the way those incorrect mouse movements happen is either a lot of people jiggle their mouse when they tap, so you'll get a little bit of and say I want to block up right, maybe I jiggle my mouse when I tap to hold down the button, and then I have to correct it once the button's down. Then the other way people have trouble is when they're turning their head and blocking. So if I want to turn to my left but block to the right, I need to turn, then click, then block upright. So if I click too early while I'm in the middle of that turning motion, I'll start to get an arrow going in the wrong direction. This new mechanism lets me see that and then fix it. And what I think is good about this is that as you get more accurate in your mouse movements, you can kind of gradually decrease the sensitivity and find the balance that's right for you between precision and speed, because it's always going to be a little slower to make a bigger drag, and it's going to move my head a little more if there's any kind of like momentum that I'm carrying through. But for new players, it's very hard to be very precise with a tiny drag. Just a little jitter will make you block the wrong way. So you can, have this lower setting and really see what's going on and be very deliberate about the direction you want to do things. And then as you get more comfortable and as you are more consistent in your directions, you can slowly build up to a higher sensitivity. The other thing that I've found from watching people was helpful for them is a lot of people before they had this arrow, they'd always think they were going straight down, but their straight down was just consistently a little to the left or a little to the right. With the arrow giving you feedback, you now kind of get a sense of like, oh, am I accurate? Ideally, you want that arrow to be straight up. That's going to give you the least odds of random input errors. And I also noticed that until I showed this indicator, people were going more at 45 degrees rather than at 60 when they were doing the diagonal ones, which was part of why they were having trouble. So to show you a little bit what this looks like, this is the block trainer that you have in your home. And this is another thing that new players have said is very helpful. I can still, even with a fairly low sensitivity, if I do a big motion, I can drag and block very quickly. You probably can't play the sensitivity versus the very fast versions of the block trainer, but versus the easy ones, you certainly can. So the other thing I wanted to show off real quick was I've been working on, this is an area called Your Home. It's a training area where you can practice and kind of learn the mechanics. So it's got that block trainer. It's got this training dummy that teaches you a little bit about dealing damage. You can kind of see the damage output of hitting him in the head versus, handle hitting him in the arm or something, where it's 41 versus 3. And then there's an attack trainer that has difficulties just like the block trainer does, where you have to, all he does is block, and you have to kill him within a certain amount of time. So you can learn kick and combo and whatnot. So I'm pretty excited to show this off to more people. The early group of people who've played with it so far said it was extremely helpful. And I've been trying to have a few people who have no melee game experience get in here and really try and get good at Swordai, because these sorts of directional combat, or even if it's not purely directional combat, these melee slashers, I think, are incredibly fun when you're good, but one of the challenges they've always faced is they have a pretty steep learning curve, and a lot of times when you're not very good, it takes a while to get fun. It's mostly frustrating while you're getting beaten up. So that's one of the problems I'm trying to solve, and one of the kind of key ideas I've been always coming back to is that idea of having the easier, more beginner-friendly control schemes be a bridge to playing well and not a crutch that as soon as you turn it off, you're kind of hopeless.